Good morning. The first meeting of the Organizational Committee of the 12th session of the Peacebuilding Commission is now called to order. I would like to propose the following agenda, also contained in document PBC/12/OC/1 for today's formal meeting. First, adoption of the agenda. Second, draft report of the Peacebuilding Commission on its 11th session. Third, election of officers. Fourth, work plan for the Peacebuilding Commission. 5, other matters. Since I hear no objections, may I take it that the members wish to adopt the provisional agenda as contained in document PBC/12/OC1. I see no objection. It is so decided. I now invite the Organizational Committee to take up the next item on its agenda, namely the adoption of the draft report of the Peacebuilding Commission on its 11th session as contained in document PBC/11/OC-L.1. As members may recall, the text before us today has been provisionally and informally approved by the Organizational Committee at its informal meeting on the 18th of December 2017, pending processing and translation in all United Nations official languages. I shall take it, therefore, that the committee is ready to adopt the report of the Peacebuilding Commission on its 11th session as contained in document PBC/11/OC/L.1. Before we adopt the report, I'm wondering whether there is any member who wishes to take the floor on the contents of the report. Okay, Japan has the floor.
Well, I just take the floor to say that we are satisfied with the report. I think the Commission has come a long way in the last couple of years under the chairmanship of my neighbor here, Macharia Kamau, but at the same time, especially under you, Ambassador Chotel. So I do appreciate what is being reported in the document. We feel that the PBC was going through and is going through a very difficult but challenging time, which can be made use of to make a lot of headways. And under your leadership, I think last year we were able to make great advances. On the side of the traditional country-specific configurations, I think we did make visible improvements in the transparency and accountability, which I think encouraged the PBC members to be showing more interest in the individual configuration. So we really appreciate that. And but at the same time, I think we were able to venture into new territories and successfully as well. One was strengthening partnership with other stakeholders, namely, especially the World Bank. The thematic issues we have started to tackle and the newly established focal points, and additional flexibility, taking up countries according to their request, which have not been member of the subject to the configuration. So I think we have come a long way, and the report outlines those improvements, progress. So I do support the report. That is not to say that we can be complacent with our progress or where we are. The SG made proposals to reform the peace and security system, and especially with emphasis on prevention and peace building. So the membership, those of us around the table, we must respond in kind, sharing or showing commitment that we are committed to improving our own performance. And the report also sets out what kind of thing that we should be doing, starting with, with so many things working as sort of a hinge between different parts of the United Nations, sort of UN system-wide coherence. And I think that includes things, if you look at small things, perhaps We can talk about things like synergies with PBC and PBF. There are so many things that we can do, some of which are in the report, and I look forward to discussions later after we adopt the report on where we go from here, and that's another agenda item. So again, I would like to thank you for your leadership, Mr. Chair, and we hope that we can have another successful year ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement, especially for the kind words to me. I thank you, Goro. Are there any other members who wish to take the floor? If none, may I take it that the committee is ready to adopt the report as it is? I see no objections. It is so decided. Once again, I wish to thank all the members for their valuable contributions to the content of the report. The report reflects the important work of the Commission in 2017 in implementing the relevant recommendations of the resolutions on the review of the peace-building architecture and priorities identified in the report of the previous session. Similarly, the report identified key priorities which will represent the framework for the work plan of the Commission and several important work streams that the Commission will pursue in 2018. I also wish to draw your attention to the fact that once processed and issued in its final straight symbol version, the report will be transmitted to the General Assembly and the Security Council for their respective annual consideration. I now invite the committee to turn to item number 3 on the agenda, namely elections of officers, which entail the election of the chair and vice chairs of the Peacebuilding Commission and chairs of country-specific configurations for a period of 1 year expiring on the 31st December 2018. In view of prior consultations among regional groups and members of the organization committee, and in accordance with the Commission's provisional rules of procedure, it is my understanding that the committee is prepared to elect the chair of the Peacebuilding Commission for its 12th session. As I understand it, the candidacy of Romania has the endorsement of the members of the organizational committee. In the absence of any other candidates, may I take it that the committee wishes to elect Romania as chair of the Peacebuilding Commission until 31st December 2018 by acclamation? It gives me great pleasure to declare Romania as chair of the Peacebuilding Commission for its 12th session. I wish to take this opportunity to extend to Romania and especially to Ambassador Ion Ginga, permanent representative of Romania, my sincere congratulations and best wishes. Members have received a letter from the chair of the Asia-Pacific Group presenting the nomination of the Republic of Korea for the position of vice chair of the Commission for the Commission's 12th session. In the absence of any other candidates, may I take it that the committee wishes to elect the Republic of Korea as vice chair of the Commission until 31st December 2018. Is there any objections or candidates? I see no objection. It is so decided. Members have also received a letter from the chair of the Western European and Others Group presenting the nomination of Germany for the position of vice chair of the Commission for the Commission's 12th session. In the absence of any other candidates, may I take it that the committee wishes to also elect Germany as vice chair of the Commission until 31st December 2018. I see no objection. It is so decided. It is also my understanding that the organizational committee wishes to re-elect the following countries to chair the Peacebuilding Commission's country-specific configurations for the period until 31st December 2018 as follows: Brazil for Guinea-Bissau, Canada for Sierra Leone, Morocco for the Central African Republic, Sweden for Liberia, and Switzerland for Burundi. In the absence of any other candidates, may I take it that the committee wishes to re-elect Brazil, Canada, Morocco, Sweden, and Switzerland for the period until 31st December 2018. By acclamation. It is so decided. Before handing over to the chair-elect, allow me to make a brief remarks in concluding my tenure as the chair of the Commission this year. The last 1 year was indeed a very special and rewarding year for me personally. Special because I was given the honor to serve as the chair of the PBC, working together with such distinguished colleagues as Ambassador Kama of Kenya and Ambassador Gomez Camacho of Mexico as vice chairs, as well as Ambassador Lauber of Switzerland, Ambassador Hilal of Morocco, Ambassador Vieira of Brazil, Ambassador Skog of Sweden, and Ambassador Blanchard of Canada as chairs of the 5 country-specific configurations. Rewarding because I was able to make small contributions to moving the Commission towards a body that is more visible, relevant, and effective in the peace-building architecture of the United Nations, working closely together with the Assistant Secretary General Oscar Fernandez Taranco of PBSO and his staff. Without their full cooperation and commitment, the small achievements I made as the chair would not have been possible, and I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all of them, especially the entire team in PBSO, for their dedicated support to me. I also wish to thank all the members of the Commission for your strong support and encouragement in fulfilling my duties as the chair. The progress made in the work of the Commission last year was also possible because I took over the chairmanship at the most opportune time for reinvigorating the role of the Commission, mainly thanks to the political momentum created by the twin resolutions on the review of the peacebuilding architecture back in 2016, and the strong commitment of Secretary General Guterres towards prevention and sustaining peace. Building upon the progress made under the leadership of my predecessors, the Commission continued to work hard to take advantage of the window of opportunity provided by this newly created momentum. Let me highlight some of the achievements made last year and share with you some of my thoughts on how to build on this progress to further strengthen the Commission in the coming years. First, in addition to the good work of the existing country-specific configurations on Burundi, Central African Republic, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, the Commission continued to expand its work by considering other countries and regions in the organizational committee. Most notably, the PBC started to assist the Gambia in its critical time of transition by sustaining international attention on the country after the Security Council stopped deliberations on its situation. The Commission also discussed the situation in the Solomon Islands, Colombia, and Sri Lanka at their request, which contributed to increasing the synergies between the PBC and PBF. The meetings illustrated how countries eligible for the PBF can use the PBC as a platform to secure global political support for their peace-building priorities, with those countries firmly in the driver's seat. The PBC also continued to take on a regional approach by discussing the Sahel, Lake Chad Basin, and the Great Lakes. Making specific progress on the Sahel this year, I believe, is particularly important to enhance the credibility of the Commission as an advisory body to the Security Council, because the Commission took up this regional issue at the request of the Council. During these meetings, it was encouraging and heartwarming to see the moral and political support offered to the countries by the members of the Commission. In my view, this is one of the most added values unique to this body that can encourage other countries to engage more with the Peacebuilding Commission. It would be critical that these engagements do not end with one-off meetings. Rather, in the coming years, we should focus our efforts on identifying and implementing practical ways to help those countries in achieving their peace-building priorities. This, to me, is the greatest task of the Commission if it is to play its envisioned role. Second, the Peacebuilding Commission continued to strengthen its partnerships with stakeholders within and outside the United Nations. Most notably, the Commission agreed with the World Bank to hold annual meetings on the countries supported by the PBC. In fact, when we met with the President, senior officials, and executive directors of the World Bank in Washington last June, I was very encouraged to see the bank's strong interest in the Commission's work. I believe the participation of Madame Kristalina Georgieva, CEO of the bank, at the PBC annual session in June attached to this interest. We should seize upon this opportunity, especially the annual meetings with the bank, to help mobilize resources for the countries supported by the PBC. Building partnership with the African Development Bank is another remaining task of the Commission in this regard. As for the partnership with regional organizations, building on the work of my predecessor, Ambassador Kamau, I visited the African Union last December together with the ambassador himself and other PBC ambassadors. I was impressed by the seriousness with which the AU engaged in the discussions with us during the visit. We agreed to hold an expert-level meeting this year to explore concrete areas of cooperation between the two bodies. The Commission also started to explore ways to engage with the private sector, starting with the preliminary contacts with the representatives of the Global Compact last December to see how we can work together for peace building. The focal points for financing, Norway and Indonesia, also took the initiative to help convene an expert-level meeting on this subject. And we should build on these efforts throughout this year. In fact, during the Asian Conference on Peace Building convened by Korea, PBSO and the Dag Hammarskjöld Foundation in Seoul in November last year, several Asian countries, including Korea, emphasized that engaging with their domestic private sector and strengthening the public-private partnership, or PPP for short, was key for economic growth and in turn building and sustaining peace. We should continue to strengthen these partnerships, including with the civil society, and thereby reinforce the convening role of the Commission and enhance the quality of its service to its parent bodies. Within the United Nations, the interaction between the PBC and the Security Council in particular appears to be improving. Like last year, the Council asked the Commission to advise on a number of regional and country-specific issues, including, among others, the Sahel, as well as Liberia and Burundi. In order to continuously improve the perception of the PBC within the United Nations, the Commission should continue to mobilize relevant stakeholders and provide quality advice to its parent bodies. Towards this end, the Commission also held a joint meeting with ECOSOC in June to address the social and economic dimensions of the challenges of the Sahel. We should continue to deliberate on how to better work with these bodies to bring about a cross-pillar, coherent, and integrated approach to peace building. Third, the Commission further diversified its working methods last year. In addition to the regular bureau meetings I started with the two vice chairs last year, the chairs of the country-specific confederations briefed the Organization Committee on a quarterly basis with a view to promoting the idea of one PBC. PBSO also regularly briefed the PBC on the activities of the PBF, helping to enhance their synergies. The Commission also appointed focal points on thematic issues such as gender, youth, financing, institution building, and national ownership. We should continue to explore ways for all members to actively engage in the work of the PBC, especially in the countries supported by the Commission. In my view, the PBC's convening role should not necessarily be confined to holding meetings only. PBC members can consider more practical ways to support the countries, which may include regular visits to or exchange of visits with international financial institutions to advocate for mobilizing resources, engaging with potential bilateral and multilateral donors, and connecting relevant stakeholders in areas of interest to the countries concerned, among others. And for all of this to happen, we should continue to strengthen the capacity of PBSO so that it can better support the PBC. When the Secretary General briefed the PBC last year for the first time in 9 years, he mentioned that the PBC's mandate was the source of his inspiration for his vision of the UN reform and expressed his commitment to strengthen the Commission as well as the hinge role of PBSO. I hope we will continue to support the Secretary General's vision and leadership to this end. As Vice Chair of the Commission for this year, together with my German colleague, I will remain committed to further strengthening the Commission by supporting the incoming Chair, Ambassador Ginga of Romania. Expressing once again my wholehearted congratulations to you, Ambassador Ginga, I now invite you to assume this chair.
Thank you. Thank you all. I presume I should say a few words. At least these are the instructions I have got from the Secretariat. Excellencies, Assistant Secretary General, dear colleagues, at the outset, allow me to warmly congratulate Ambassador Cho, outgoing chair of the PBC, for the excellent work done last year. The Republic of Korea led the Commission at a crucial time, implementing important recommendations of the review of the peace-building architecture, in particular, diversifying the working methods of the Commission, strengthening its convening power, and enhancing its advisory role to the Security Council. And it is therefore a particular privilege for me to be able to count on the Republic of Korea as well as on Germany. I've seen my German colleague there as vice chairs in 2018. At the same time, I want to recall the significant achievements brought to the work of this Commission by outstanding ambassadors who chaired the PBC in previous years. Antonio Patriota of Brazil, Olof Skog of Sweden, and Macharia Kamau of Kenya. I also wish to express my deep gratitude to all members of the PBC for the trust they have given to Romania. I take this as a recognition of my country's 100 years of tradition in multilateral diplomacy, as Romania was a founding member of the League of Nations in 1919. And since it joined the United Nations in 1955, it invested a lot in preventive diplomacy, conflict prevention, peace building, and mediation. In the last 26 years, Romania participated with more than 12,500 troops in 20 UN peacekeeping missions. It ranks today first among the European Union countries contributing with police officers under the UN flag, and is the only United Nations member providing close protection units to UN high-level officials in high-risk areas. By taking over the chairmanship of the PBC on behalf of my country, I reconfirm Romania's full commitment and determination to peace building and sustaining peace. As the effectiveness and efficiency of this Commission is directly linked to the engagement of its members, I count on your most valuable support to continue the important work done by my predecessors. I look forward to work with all of you as a team, I repeat, as a team, to further strengthen the PBC and consolidate its relevance in relation with all partners, in particular with the Security Council. Excellencies, the provisional work plan for 2018, which is considered for adoption today, was drafted with two objectives in mind: to implement the recommendations contained in the PBC annual report, which we just adopted, and to follow up to several initiatives the Commission has undertaken over the last couple of years. The work plan reflects 5 priorities that I have identified for the current session. First, the PBC regional approach. Since its first meeting on the Ebola crisis in 2014, the Commission has consistently proved its value in catalyzing responses to regional and sub-regional situations. I intend to stay on this important track with particular focus on the Commission's engagement on the situations in the Sahel and the Great Lakes regions. Through its Presidential Statement number 2 of 2017 and Resolution 2389, the Security Council recognized the role of the Commission in giving support to peace building and sustaining peace efforts in these 2 regions. These are important opportunities to demonstrate the ways in which the PBC can use its convening power to mobilize greater commitment and partnership between the countries in the region, the UN system, and other relevant international and regional partners in support of the countries concerned. The PBC is well positioned to carry on a coordinated and coherent approach to peace building and to help address the root causes of conflict. Ultimately, these are opportunities to confirm the unique role of the PBC to advise and support the Security Council. As demonstrated during recent discussions on Asian and Latin American experiences, peace building is a universal imperative. I wish to encourage countries from various regions to consider using the PBC platform to share peace building experiences and build partnerships with key stakeholders. Second, partnerships. The PBC has demonstrated a high degree of flexibility when it comes to engaging with key peace-building stakeholders, and I intend to further strengthen collaboration with regional and some regional organizations, and the African Union in particular, with international financial institutions such as the World Bank and the African Development Bank, and with civil society organizations. We should take advantage of the critical and complementary roles of the UN and the World Bank in an integrated political, security, and development framework. One partnership that I believe should be further explored is with the private sector. International and domestic private sector actors and entities have important roles to play in implementation of peace building and sustaining peace efforts, particularly in addressing the root causes of conflicts. Political, social, and economic activities associated with peace building are closely related. And the main challenge of peace building from an economic perspective is to create an environment favorable to sustainable development, for which private investment may be indispensable, especially in post-conflict situations. I therefore submit to your kind attention the suggestion that the PBC should explore, when relevant, opportunities to engage more strategically with the private sector and with private sector actors in order to raise awareness on the peace-building priorities of our partner countries and their regions, including by enhancing the participation of the private sector in terms of definition of peace-building objectives. The Commission's annual session is a perfect place to bring all these actors together and to link my first two priorities. I propose to you that we use the platform of the annual session of 2018 to convene key stakeholders to review the wide-ranging security, political, and socio-economic challenges facing the Sahel region and ongoing efforts of the United Nations to advance the implementation of its integrated strategy for the Sahel. Third, implementing peace building and sustaining peace. A key outcome of the 2015 review was the recognition of the importance of supporting conflict-affected countries through the whole process, from preventing the outbreak, escalation, and recurrence of conflict to reconstruction and development. Prevention not only saves lives, but it is also cost-effective. The Commission, in accordance with its mandate, should stand ready to support conflict-affected countries that seek to engage with the international community at all stages of conflict. As a unique consensus-building body, the PBC role is only to help. Peace building must respect the sovereignty of the states concerned and be based on the concept of ownership. Equally important, further rising of the PBC profile depends largely on its relationship with the Security Council and the PBC capacity to bring valuable inputs to the Council's work without interfering with the Council's competencies. Fourth, the relationship between the PBC and the PBF. I intend to further strengthen the synergies between the Commission and the Peace Building Fund. Over the last couple of years, Mr. Oscar Fernandez Taranco and PBSO have performed a tremendous work to raise awareness among member states on the activities of the fund. I hope the PBF will play an increasing role in implementing the Council and General Assembly resolutions on the peacebuilding architecture review. Therefore, I intend to continue convening on a regular basis discussions with the PBSO with the objective of keeping the PBC updated on the countries it supports and of finding innovative ways to develop the PBC relevance. At the same time, while preserving the independence of the fund, I think there should be more coherence between programming tools and political objectives. The Commission should also be utilized as a platform to raise awareness with donors and international financial institutions of the work of the PBF with the view to reinforcing the fund's catalytic nature. Fifth and last, but not the least, visibility and communication. In the follow-up of the 2015 review of the peacebuilding architecture, the PBC has made important progress in strengthening its advisory role to General Assembly and Security Council in discussing a more diverse range of peacebuilding challenges and in improving its working methods. I believe that this progress needs to be better known and recognized by a broader audience. I welcome the suggestion of my predecessor, Ambassador Cho, to have open meetings of the Commission transmitted when webcast. I think this meeting is one webcast too. I believe we should explore ways to engage more consistently with the media and the broader public. And I encourage Member States to discuss, in the framework of the Commission's working methods, ways to raise awareness on the work of the PBC. The PBC needs to continue to focus into a better perceived value to the Council and to the countries that it seeks to support. At the same time, a solid and lasting peace-building process needs, in my opinion, high level of transparency, public scrutiny, participation, and consultation. Therefore, while keeping the balance between transparency and confidentiality in the Commission's deliberations, and upon a consultation with the countries concerned, I will announce when the meetings are to be open or closed. And whenever possible, we may also think to invite the media to become one of our partners in building peace. Excellencies, dear colleagues, dear friends, the PBC now has to translate the improvements achieved in its activity in the last couple of years into a more visible role as a bridge between the Security Council, the General Assembly, and the ECOSOC to make these three UN institutions work together better for a more coherent peace building. If successful, this would be a relevant added value to our Commission's role. As we move ahead in the implementation of the 2015 review of the peace-building architecture, it will also be important to further enhance the Commission's country-specific engagement. In this respect, we may consider to further expand the range of our discussions in the framework of the Organizational Committee, while reaffirming our commitment towards lasting partnerships with the countries that have approached the Commission in the past. Well, with these humble ideas in mind, I count on your most valuable support, and I look forward to work with all of you to ensure a successful and effective year of the PBC. Thank you. Well, I try step by step to enter into my role under the control of my friend Ambassador Cho. I now wish to invite members of the Commission to consider item 4 of the agenda, namely work plan of the Peacebuilding Commission. You have the document? Yeah? Okay. So pursuant to the PBC annual report that we have just adopted and its recommendations contained in paragraph 4 of the annex on the working methods of the Peacebuilding Commission, the Commission is to, and I quote, adopt an annual work plan based on the forward agenda contained in the Commission's annual report. The work plan is to be further developed and circulated to Member States on a quarterly basis and on a monthly basis, listing the dates of meetings, activities, and visits of the Commission in all its configurations. End of quotation. In this connection, Member States received a provisional annual work plan, which builds on the forward agenda of the report and on key priorities the Commission should focus on 2018. It is my intention to use this work plan and further develop it on a quarterly and monthly basis. To this end, I wish to invite the Commission to adopt the provisional work plan. One, two, three. I heard no objection. It is so decided. It's good to have a gavel. Thank you. I now wish to invite Mr. Oscar Fernandez Taranco, Assistant Secretary General for Peacebuilding Support, to deliver remarks. Oscar?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me start by, again, congratulating you and warmly welcoming you to this very important function, Chair of the Peacebuilding Commission, in such important times. Also, to thank and congratulate the Republic of Korea and Germany on the assumption of their vice chairmanship. To also recognize the very important accomplishments of Brazil, Canada, Morocco, Sweden, and Switzerland, and congratulate them on the re-election as in their functions as country configuration chairs, and again to lead the Peacebuilding Commission's engagement with Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Central African Republic, Liberia, and Burundi, respectively. I also wish to give a special thanks to the previous chair of the Peacebuilding Commission, to Kenya and to its ambassador Kamau in particular for his very inspiring, dedicated, and committed leadership that has allowed us to reach the very important points that many of you have been mentioning. And again, to give him a very special ongera sana as he assumes this very important appointment as Deputy Foreign Minister of Kenya. We count on your very strong continued support from your new position for peace building and sustaining peace. Also, I would like to thank Mexico and Ambassador Gomez Camacho, in particular for his role as Vice Chair in the last year. Let me also acknowledge the many contributions of the Republic of Korea and the commitment of Ambassador Cho. I had the unique privilege to travel with Ambassador Cho, to work very closely with him and his very engaged mission, and his many colleagues that were on a full-time basis dedicated to, in real time, responding to the requests of the wide membership of the United Nations in translating the sustaining peace, the resolutions on peace building and sustaining peace into action. So it has been a big honor and a privilege, and I wish to thank you. You have certainly, as many have already stated, risen the flexibility and help rise the profile and the impact of the Peacebuilding Commission during this very successful and unprecedented year. In particular, Korea's leadership in carrying forward the implementation of the resolutions of the review of peacebuilding architecture, the meetings on the Sahel and the Great Lakes, which demonstrated the important convening role of the Commission in addressing regional and sub-regional situations. Also, the very dedicated support to the Gambia, which showed actually how the Peacebuilding Commission, in the context and framework of its organizational committee, can actually provide a forum where interested countries can come, share their peacebuilding experiences, and establish closer partnership with its key stakeholders. It was also important work done by Korea in fostering much stronger synergies between the Peacebuilding Commission and the Peacebuilding Fund. And I take your strong direction and suggestion that we continue to build on these very important synergies, because I do believe this is one way that we're able to bring the flexibility and the openness, if you will, to the deliberations that this Peacebuilding Commission can have in support to member states and their peacebuilding priorities. The discussions we had on the Solomon Islands, on Colombia, on Sri Lanka were particularly relevant, and particularly for three key reasons, which I think still will remain valid and the challenge going ahead. First, to provide a space for interested countries to share their peacebuilding experience, reinforcing the notion of national ownership and leadership. Second, they all highlighted that it was recognized, as it was actually recognized by several delegations during these meetings, that despite the uniqueness of each situation that was discussed, there were important commonalities among peacebuilding processes in various countries across the different regions of the world that highlighted the importance of sharing the lessons learned. And third is reiterating this need for coherence between programmatic tools and the political objectives that you so well articulated in your statement, Mr. Chair, and as has been part of the discussions of the role and the support of the Peacebuilding Fund. I also welcome very warmly the statement of the Chair and the 5 priorities identified by Romania: regional approach, partnerships, implementing the peacebuilding and sustaining peace resolutions, and the relations and improved relations between the Peacebuilding Commission and the Peacebuilding Fund. And the last but not least, and equally important in these times of big changes and reforms, the importance of visibility and clear articulated communications. Also, the intention to consolidate the progress made by the Peacebuilding Commission so far, while at the same time stressing the importance of further expanding the scope of work of the Commission, if it is to continue to be this relevant and increasingly important player. Romania is assuming the chairmanship of the Peacebuilding Commission during a critical years. And I see 3 challenges ahead. The first, that the Peacebuilding Commission has to build on the progress it has achieved. PBSO will support the Commission in continuing to implement the key recommendations of the resolution on the review of the peacebuilding architecture, and to include supporting improvements in the working methods that enable this Commission to become more nimble platform that can be called upon by a broader range of conflict-affected countries at all stages of the conflict, including prevention. Last year saw significant progress. The Peacebuilding Commission now has to consolidate this, build on it, and deliver further in the eyes of others. The second is the high-level meeting on peacebuilding and sustaining peace, to be convened by the President of the General Assembly on the 24th and 25th of April. This will be a key milestone, not just for the whole membership, but for this particular commission. As requested by the resolution on the review of the peacebuilding architecture, the Secretary General's report on peacebuilding and sustaining peace will inform this meeting, with its emphasis on addressing operational and policy coherence, leadership issues and challenges of the UN, accountability and capacities, partnerships, and presenting the membership with options on increasing, restructuring, and better prioritizing funding dedicated to United Nations peacebuilding activities. The Peacebuilding Commission should play a very important role in engaging the wider UN membership and supporting the PGA's effort, particularly in this high-level event, both in the lead-up to the event and well beyond once the meeting is actually finished. And third, this is the year of decisions and preparations for the implementation of the Secretary General's reform agenda, including as related to the repositioning of the development system, which is so crucial for the performance of the Peacebuilding Fund that we tend to discuss so often in these meetings, and the restructuring of the peace and security pillar and the important management reforms that should add additional flexibility, nimbleness in the way our peace operations are performing on the ground, but also in their interlinkages with UN country teams. And I think that many of the challenges that we have discussed in this Peacebuilding Commission many times has to do with this notion of coherence of UN performance in mission and non-mission settings. This also includes the notion of an empowered peacebuilding support office to act as a hinge, connecting peace and security pillar with development system, humanitarian actors, and human rights pillar. It should also include a strengthened support to support your activities. I think this is a crucial part, and I hope, again, that the membership will be fully engaged in supporting the Secretary General's effort on this account. The reform should also be an important opportunity to strengthen the Secretary General's Peacebuilding Fund as a timely, flexible, catalytic, and risk-tolerant instrument and a very important driver of UN coherence across its different pillars and to support the peacebuilding priorities of member states. In his report on sustaining peace, the Secretary General's report for this upcoming high-level meeting in April, will again be calling for a quantum leap in contributions to the Peacebuilding Fund and has offered numerous options for member states' consideration to consider. We welcome the adoption of the annual work plan, which has mandated by the new working methods of the Peacebuilding Commission and continues the practice of last year. The work plan is ambitious and will require your engaged membership throughout the year to be able to deliver on much of what is being proposed. We welcome the decision to focus the Peacebuilding Commission annual session on a regional situation. The annual session is a very important opportunity for the Peacebuilding Commission not only to use and show its convening power to bring all the relevant actors together around complex and regional issues such as the Sahel, but also to demonstrate its value added to important intergovernmental mechanisms such as the Security Council, ECOSOC, and the General Assembly. And finally, and to conclude, I wish to confirm my office, the Peacebuilding Support Office, total commitment and dedication to the success of your efforts, Mr. Chair, to the membership of this very important Peacebuilding Commission. And we also engage and commit ourselves to bring the support from the top senior management of the UN system to actually get more engaged in the deliberations of this Peacebuilding Commission so that we can translate a lot of the recommendations and suggestions that might emanate from these discussions into concrete, deliverable results in the field to support peace building and sustaining peace priorities of the membership. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good luck.
Thank you so much, Assistant Secretary General, for your remarks and for your kind reconfirmation of your support. In my turn, I wish to reiterate that my team and I are looking forward to working closely with you personally and with your colleagues in the Peacebuilding Support Office throughout Romania's chairmanship of the Commission. I now invite the vice chairs to make remarks. No? Ambassador of Germany.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Jon Jenga, and congratulations to your election, and of course also thanks to Ambassador Cho, Mr. Oscar Fernandez Taranco, Excellencies, distinguished ambassadors and colleagues. I will be very brief, but to start with, I would like to once again congratulate Romania for being elected as new chair to the PBC, and I would also like to thank you for electing Germany as the PBC vice chair next to Korea in 2018. Germany has supported the establishment and work of the PBC since the very beginning. And we are also a very strong supporter of the Peacebuilding Fund, which we see as a very critical and hinge factor for future implementation of reform and sustaining peace. Germany was the second largest contributor to the Peacebuilding Fund in 2017, actually. Over the past few years, the PBC has proven its value in United Nations peace efforts and has amply and concretely justified its existence within the UN peace and security architecture. Ambassador Cho has guided the PBC with excellent leadership, and we look very much forward to working with the new chair of the Peacebuilding Commission and Korea as vice chair. We welcome the changes made to the PBC's working methods in recent years. Changes include discussions of country and regional situations in the organizational committee, in addition to the current country-specific configurations, as many of you have already pointed out. These changes, we believe, make the PBC much more flexible and more efficient. Germany stands ready to fully support the chair and advance the 5 priorities set out in the work plan for this year, as just outlined by the chair. Let me briefly add, to increase its value and strengthen its relationship with the Security Council, the PBC must also be aware of future challenges and opportunities. I strongly believe that the PBC's advisory role to the Security Council should be strengthened. Germany is determined to support the development of the PBC and also in its relationship with the Security Council. The PBC should stay ready to ensure that the current positive momentum of sustaining peace and the ongoing reforms can be converted into closer cooperation with the Security Council. And we should continuously strive to improve the PBC's ability to advise the Security Council. Doing so will help ensure coherence with peacebuilding efforts and smoothen the transition from peacekeeping to peacebuilding. Thank you very much.
I thank the German Vice Chair of the Commission. Thank you, Jürgen. I'm sure we'll have an excellent cooperation. And I now wish to invite chairs of the country-specific meetings to share basic outlines of priorities and planned activities for the year. Chairs are now kindly invited to request the floor and make, if possible, brief presentations. So who's first? Brazil.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to start by congratulating you, Ambassador Yonjinga, for your election as a new chair of the PBC, as well as Ambassadors Cho Tae-yu of Korea and Ambassador Jürgen Schulz of Germany on their election today as vice chairs. I also would like to say a word of thanks and congratulations to Ambassador Cho Tae-yu for his leadership during 2017 as president of the PBC and for the great contribution he made to this body. Let me thank the members of the PBC for the re-election of Brazil as chair of the Guinea-Bissau configuration and congratulate the other chairs of the country-specific configurations as well. I will briefly recall the last activities of the Guinea-Bissau configuration and announce the activities planned for 2018. The PBC last held a meeting on Guinea-Bissau on December 6, and a statement was issued shortly thereafter on December 11th. In this statement, the Guinea-Bissau configuration reiterated its full support for the Bissau six-point roadmap and the Conakry Agreement as the framework of the resolution of the political crisis. I also called upon the authorities of Guinea-Bissau and key political actors to demonstrate leadership and determination by engaging in actions that would lead to the swift and effective implementation of these agreements. I would like to point out that important political developments have taken place in the country since the beginning of 2018. On January 12 this year, Prime Minister Umaru Sissoko Embalo sent a letter to President José Mário Vaz offering his resignation, which was accepted on January 16th. We received information that Mr. Arthur Silva was appointed Prime Minister and will take office today. On January 27 in Addis Ababa, in the context of the 30th African Union Summit, President Vaz met with the heads of states and government of West Africa and discussed the impasse in Guinea-Bissau. We are following closely the results of the ECOWAS meeting. On February 14th, the Security Council will have a briefing on Guinea-Bissau and will be provided with an update of the situation in the country. This month, the Council will also discuss the planned renewal of the UNIOGBI's mandate. As you can see in the provisional work plan, we have scheduled a PBC ambassadorial level meeting in February to hear from the UN representatives and receive the views of the members of the configuration on the recent developments in Guinea-Bissau. These discussions will provide us with inputs for our statement to be delivered to the Security Council later that week. The next Security Council briefing on Guinea-Bissau this year will take place in August. We are still considering the best moment for a visit to Guinea-Bissau this year. We have tentatively included it in the work plan, but its exact date will depend on developments on the ground. I have also planned ambassadorial level meetings of the configuration in May, August, and November. This will allow the PBC to follow and support the country during this crucial year in which we hope that a solution to the political crisis will be found. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Brazil, and I now give the floor to the representative of Morocco.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like at the outset to share with you that Ambassador Omar Ilali, Chair of the Country-Specific Configuration of the Central African Republic, hoped to be here at the meeting this morning. Unfortunately, he's currently outside the United States. He's travelling, and that's why I'm here in his place. So allow me first and foremost, Chair, to congratulate you upon your appointment to the chairmanship of the Peacebuilding Commission, the PBC, for the year 2018. Rest assured that you will enjoy the effective and active and agile support of my delegation to do all that we can to ensure that your chairmanship is successful and so that we can implement the various points that you introduced as the work plan this morning. I would also like to congratulate Germany and the Republic of Korea upon their re-election to the posts of vice chairs of the PBC. May I also take this opportunity to extend my warmest congratulations to His Excellency Ambassador Cho Tae-yul, whose ongoing commitment to peace building was remarkable and praiseworthy. We thank him for all he did as chair of the Peacebuilding Commission. Ambassador Cho dedicated a great deal of his personal effort to the work of the PBC, which has enabled us to make considerable headway, particularly in terms of the relationship between the PBC and other leading organizations and bodies of the United Nations to ensure that our profile is properly raised. But he also played a key role in making sure that we pursued stronger partnerships with other regional organizations such as the African Union. I would like to thank all members of the PBC and the Central African Republic for having confirmed Morocco in the post of chair of the country-specific configuration for the CAR. I would like to address two brief points. Firstly, the draft work plan for the country-specific configuration for 2018, and also the Secretary-General's concept of sustaining peace, which Mr. Taranko himself referred to in his own statement. On the provisional programme of work for the Commission, in 2017, the configuration focused mainly and chiefly on the implementation of Pillar 1 of the National Recovery and Peacebuilding Plan of the Central African Republic. We intended initially to address all three pillars of the plan, but given that the implementation of Pillars 2 and 3 depends on the successful implementation of Pillar 1 of said plan, the configuration decided to focus its whole attention on supporting efforts to implement Pillar 1. Pillar 1 comprises security sector reform, disarmament and demobilization and reintegration, the rule of law and reconciliation. We intend to call for ambassador-level meetings, and these will be a precursor to later expert meetings. The programme that we intend to follow is as follows. In February and March, we will have expert-level meetings on DDR and on SSR. We will also hold an ambassadorial-level meeting in February as well to provide an update on the situation in the country, and a briefing will be heard from the Special Representative of the Secretary-General to the CAR. In March and or April, we'll have a further ambassadorial-level meeting to provide an update on security sector reform and on DDR. We also hope to be able to convene a meeting with the with a panel of representatives of the African Initiative. The chair of the country-specific configuration is intending to travel in the next few days to Washington to meet with the World Bank and State Department officials. A visit is also envisaged to the Central African Republic by the chair of the country-specific configuration towards the middle of the year. If headway is made in implementation of Pillar 1 of the National Recovery and Peacebuilding Plan of the CAR, then the country-specific configuration in the second half of the year will turn its attention to implementation of Pillar 2. I would like to thank the members of the configuration and the Secretariat, in particular the PBSO, for their support of the configuration's work, and would ask them to continue to work with us in order to ensure that we can build on the current momentum towards implementing the concept of sustaining peace, because we are convinced that the Central African Republic has all the potential to be a genuine success story when it comes to delivering on that concept. If I may turn now to the Secretary General's report on sustaining peace as introduced by the Assistant Secretary General Taranko, and may I take this opportunity to thank Mr. Taranko for his key role for all that he does to support and further and champion peace building here within the United Nations system. A few initial remarks, if I may. Firstly, Morocco welcomes the Secretary General's report on peace building and sustaining peace, which enshrines peace as an ongoing process, bringing together all the needs of all segments of society. My delegation thanks the Secretary-General for having circulated an advanced version of his report on peace building and sustaining peace, which has enabled us to better understand the spirit and content of said report. That has also meant, and Mr. Taranko referred to the high-level meeting that will take place on the 24th and 25th of April at the General Assembly level, and that was also referred to in the advanced version of the report. We see this as a critical meeting, and we believe that at that 24th, 25th April meeting, the PBC must play a critical role to ensure that said meeting is successful. Now, the circulation of the Secretary-General's report will also serve to help us in advance of said meeting in April to be able to prepare for it properly. We are eagerly awaiting the official presentation on the 23rd of February by the Secretary-General of his report, because the submission or presentation of said report is the first step in the further process of sustaining peace. We welcome the fact that the report highlights reports already underway to sustain peace and to build peace, as well as efforts underway to support the overall reform of the UN system and to support the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. We welcome the fact that it highlights the importance of peace building and also makes the point that there must be proper funding for peace building as a key component of sustaining peace. To conclude, we would like to reiterate once again Morocco's commitment to this endeavour and to the overall cause of building peace. Thank you very much. I thank the representative of Morocco, says the chair, for his statement, as well as for his kind words and expression of support to the chair. And I now give the floor to the representative of Canada. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And first, let me join others in congratulating you, Ambassador Njinga, and Romania on election as PBC chair this year. 2018, as others have said, is a very important year for peace building, and you've outlined this morning a very clear vision for us, and we very much look forward to continuing our important work under your leadership. Also, let me thank outgoing Chair Ambassador Cho for your leadership over the past year. We've really seen a quantum leap in the PBC's work, both through our engagement with new countries through the OC and in our thematic and regional work. And I would be remiss as well, Ambassador, if I didn't thank your team, your exceptional team around you, for the patience, the responsiveness, the helpfulness, and the innovation that they brought to the work day in and day out. We're very grateful for the work that you and your team have done for us over the past year. As country configuration chair for Sierra Leone, it will come as no surprise to colleagues in the room that our priority for the PBC, at least for the first part of 2018, is in supporting Sierra Leone in holding free, fair, transparent, peaceful, and credible elections in March 2018 and ensuring a peaceful transition. To date, our work has included advocacy and political accompaniment for the elections, including through a chair's visit last month in December of 2017, mobilization of political, technical, and financial support to ensure all elements of support to the 2018 elections are funded and the capacity exists to deliver, and finally, engagement with civil society, regional partners, and other actors to ensure an inclusive, peaceful process. Technical preparations for the election seem largely on track, and our Ambassador Blanchard reported on this just a few weeks ago. We have a high degree of confidence, and there's been a high degree of confidence expressed in the National Electoral Commission by all parties. As we've also reported, political parties are fragmented at this time. Now, that's not a unique situation in an electoral context, and it's not certainly not unique to Sierra Leone, but it is something that we continue to watch very closely. We anticipate that there is a possibility of elections going to a second round, and we will watch closely for signs of any election-related instability that may come with that. We will continue to monitor developments on the ground and continue outreach to partners. We will plan for a PBC meeting in March following the first round of elections. And beyond that, our engagement will remain flexible, responsive, demand-driven, and field-focused, and always done in close contact and close collaboration with our colleagues at the Permanent Mission of Sierra Leone here in New York, as well as through our contact with the RC's office and, of course, UNOWAS. Following the elections and transition, we look forward to a conversation with the new government and the incoming government about the role and nature of PBC forward engagement. And that's something that we will then be prepared to report back to the organizational committee as we go forward. Just a final word, and it's picking up on your point, Ambassador Jinga, around the role of private sector and investment. You know, as we move past the election, we need to, I think, collectively recall that Sierra Leone is working very, very hard to diversify its economy, attract foreign investment, and it's not an easy path. We do see potential for the PBC in this area and hope that we can collectively work on innovative ways for the PBC to use its convening role and platform to engage on these sorts of issues, including engaging with the private sector. So we were very heartened by your comments this morning in that regard. So with that, I thank you for giving me the floor this morning. We do very much look forward to working with you and in support of your efforts, and know that you can count on Canada every step of the way.
Thank you very much to the representative of Canada. I look forward to have a conversation on that issue with you and with your ambassador. And now I'll give the floor to the distinguished representative of Sweden.
Thank you, Chair, and let me first just join others in congratulating you on your election today. We wish you, of course, all the success this year, and you can definitely count on our support as we go forward. We would also like to take this opportunity, of course, to thank the Republic of Korea and their entire team working on PBC this year. The dedication that they have shown and their capacity has really been vital for the success of the PBC this year, and we have, as we've heard today, we welcome all these the progress that have been made in making the PBC even more accessible and flexible, and so we really congratulate you on this successful year of 2017. I'm very happy to be able to report on some of the activities of the Liberia configuration. This is, as you know, a very happy moment in Liberia's history. Liberia has just concluded a successful election, marking the first democratic and peaceful transfer of power in Liberia since 1944. But as you all know as well, Liberia is in a dual transition. It's not only with the new government. We are also expecting the drawdown and exit of the UN peacekeeping mission at the end of the first quarter of this year. In terms of the PBC this year, we have first and foremost focused on our work of supporting the drafting of a peacebuilding plan, which was requested by the Security Council in its resolution 2333 of December 2016, and the beginning of implementation of that plan. We had an ambassadorial configuration meeting on the 21st of November with the Acting Minister of Internal Affairs, who was reassuring the PBC that despite the ongoing election process, the peacebuilding plan was being implemented. Systems had been put in place to monitor assets, and all government ministries had been instructed to prepare a term and notes for their successors so that continuation could be ensured. He also underlined a few pending challenges and particularly stressed that political reconciliation must be a priority for this commission going forward. As the PBC now, of course, we are looking forward to engage the new government. Together with the new government, we will be identifying the areas where gaps remain from this first phase of implementing the peacebuilding plan, and also look at how we can support efforts by this new government to develop their vision for phase 2 of the peace-building plan. And so we really look forward to engage with this new government, and as has been stated by other chairs of configurations, of course, we work extremely closely with the Liberian mission here. I should also say that during this year we have actively worked and discussed the UNMIL, the drawdown, the UN mission drawdown, as well as, of course, the capacity and resources of the UN country team, which will have to step up as they draw down. The country team undertook a mapping exercise to identify gaps, and in this exercise they concluded that there was a clear risk of a resource cliff, as we have called it, and so we have therefore assisted the UN system to now respond to this report in order to manage the transition and to ensure that predictable funding for peace building in Liberia during this critical phase can be ensured. I can also say that during our meeting in November, the resident coordinator, UN coordinator, confirmed that there are plans to hold a Liberia Moment meeting in Monrovia in the second half of March this year. This is something that we've also heard from the new government as being confirmed, although the date has not been set. This will be then an opportunity for the new government to present to the international community its vision for peace building, and would also provide a platform to discuss the gaps that may be there as the Security Council mandate for Liberia ends and the bidding farewell of the UN mission on the ground. I should say that Ambassador Skog plans to attend this conference, of course, in Monrovia, to consult with the new government and national partners on the PBC engagement going forward as we address this very important dual transition. So in 2018, I should say there are 3 main focus areas for the PBC. The first one being support the implementation of the peace-building plan. Second, to provide political accompaniment, not least now in the immediate phase following the elections. And 3, to help ensure adequate resources and international support, also to avoid a financial cliff as discussed after the departure of UNMIL. In the interest of time, I will not go through the work plan, but just to highlight maybe 3 top activities coming up. First, as I mentioned, the trip by the chair to Liberia in March for the Liberia Moment. Second, a follow-up meeting at ambassadorial level to this in order to identify with the new government the way forward for PBC engagement. And 3, in April, we will receive the last SG report on the UN mission, and there will be consultations in the Security Council, and hence this will be an important moment also for the PBC to engage with the Council on its future role. So let me just finally say that we are in Liberia truly, Liberia is truly where the sustaining peace agenda needs to be taken from paper to practice. The Liberia configuration stands ready to continue its political accompaniment, to help ensure continued international attention and support, and assist in pursuing reforms that are central for sustaining long-term peace and prosperity in Liberia. I thank you, Chair.
Thank the representative of Sweden. And now, I now give
the floor to the permanent representative of Switzerland.
Honorer la francophonie.
I am honored to be addressed in French, but I will speak in English.
Congratulations on your election to the chairmanship, and I look very much forward to working with you, and you can, of course, be assured of our full support in your important role. I also want to thank Ambassador Cho Tae-ul and his team for the support and confidence we've had throughout his year, and for the contribution of the Republic of Korea to the continuous rise of the PBC we all we've all seen over the last few years. Congratulations to Germany on assuming the vice chairmanship, and I really want to thank also, because I see him right in front of me, the Ambassador of Kenya, Ambassador Manchuria Kamau for not only what he did in his role as the chair of the PBC, but his strong support to me personally in my role as chair of the Burundi configuration. Thank you very much for that, Ambassador. Good luck with your next assignment. Finally, a word of thanks also to Oscar Taranco and his team for the great work you do. And last but definitely not least, I want to mention the excellent cooperation we have here in New York with the mission of Burundi and especially the ambassador, permanent representative of Burundi. Let me brief you quickly on the key activities of the Burundi configuration in 2017. Last year, the configuration pursued its broad engagement with the government and other political stakeholders, civil society, the private sector, regional and international partners in support of regional efforts to overcome the current situation in Burundi, with a focus on mitigating the socio-economic impact on the population. I had two opportunities to visit Burundi last year, once in March and then again in July. In March, I briefed the President of Burundi and other high-ranking interlocutors in Bujumbura on the socio-economic consultations that I had organized together with the United Nations, the European Union, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank and the African Development Bank in Geneva in November 2016. During the same trip in March, I co-hosted a working lunch with the government and the UN country team on the country's socio-economic challenges and ways to mobilize support for ongoing responses. The visit allowed me also to gain a first-hand insight into the engagement of the Peacebuilding Fund in Burundi. On my way to Burundi, I met with the facilitator of the East African Community, Benjamin Mkapa, representatives of the Foreign Ministry of Tanzania, the World Bank and other interlocutors in Dar es Salaam. In July, I attended a follow-up socio-economic retreat organized by the Minister of External Relations in Bujumbura. Numerous UN agencies, the World Bank and the African Development Bank, participated in this retreat. Its main objective was to identify the main socio-economic challenges faced by the country in the areas of agriculture, health and education, and to discuss possible responses, as well as to identify the challenges of cooperation. In their joint conclusions, the government and the participating partners expressed their wish to continue the socio-economic dialogue and involve additional partners. As concerns the engagement with international financial institutions, in April last year I undertook a trip to Washington, D.C. in order to pursue my dialogue with the World Bank and the IMF. On that occasion, I also met with the Minister of Finance of Burundi, who was in Washington to participate in the spring meetings of the IFIs. Concerning the engagement with the Eastern African Community and the African Union, in early October, I met President Mkapa again, this time in Geneva, and discussed the state of play of the EAC-mediated dialogue and his plans for a next round of talks in Arusha. In October, I used the opportunity of a visit to Addis Ababa to meet with the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of External Relations and International Cooperation of Burundi, but also with high-ranking representatives of the African Union, the Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, and the head of the United Nations Office of the African Union. Concerning the engagement with the Security Council, I really want to express my gratitude for the excellent cooperation between the Security Council and the configuration. In 2017, I briefed the Council on 4 occasions on the engagement of the PBC Burundi configuration. I would like to thank in particular the United Kingdom, China, Bolivia and Italy, who invited me to brief during their respective presidencies. Other members on the Council helped very much to facilitate this. I just want to thank my colleague, the colleague to my left, Sweden, for this. With regard to plans and priorities for 2018, during this year I wish to continue to encourage and support dialogue aimed at resolving the political situation, namely through the engagement of relevant regional actors. In parallel, I believe the PBC can continue to serve as a platform for dialogue between Burundi and its development partners with a view to assess the country's humanitarian and socio-economic challenges and create incentives to overcoming obstacles for cooperation. I'm planning to visit Burundi in the first semester of this year at a time to be agreed upon with the government of Burundi, of course. The main focus of the next trip will be on 5 subjects. I presented them to the configuration on Monday of this week, and in the interest of time, I just want to very quickly touch upon. The 5 points are the mediation efforts of the EIC. I remain convinced that this must be at the center of our efforts, and whatever we do with the configuration needs to be in full support of the mediation efforts of the sub-region and must be coordinated. Number 2, we need to look at the 2020 elections and see what the role of the configuration can be to help Burundi preparing these elections. Number 3, we want to continue the socio-economic dialogue as we agreed upon with the government of Burundi. We also want to open the circle. We want to include additional partners. Number 4, we want, as a configuration, to see how we can support the humanitarian situation. One issue that really needs our attention is the issue of refugees now returning to Burundi. And number 5, the national reconciliation. That's an issue I know is very dear to the heart of the President of Burundi, and we want to see how the configuration can support that. That's the issues we want to look into in 2018. Thank you very much for giving me the floor.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Lauber. And I thank all the chairs of the Commission's country-specific meetings for sharing the overall priorities and plans. We are all determined to further strengthen the institutional and the practical links between the organizational committee and the country-specific work streams of the Commission. Therefore, building on the practice established last year, I wish to organize periodic meetings to take stock of the progress made and the challenges requiring our collective action in support of your respective efforts. So it will be a two-way road, and certainly we need each other. I now invite other member states to take the floor. El Salvador.
Ahí está. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to congratulate you and all those in their new posts. I have a few comments and a few questions on the provisional plan, and I do understand that we're still on this agenda item and we can still throw ideas out there on this. As you know, we, as El Salvador, have been very heavily involved in the work of the Peacebuilding Commission since it was first set up, and we've been involved in different guises and in different capacities, and will continue to be deeply involved. And we have perceived and thematic evolution in the work of the PBC, which is something that we welcome. It's moved from a very restricted agenda to a much broader and expanded agenda that deals with things on different levels. This is something that my predecessor has already said. But I echo him by saying that we welcome these different modalities and these different levels of interaction involving the PBC, including the interaction with the country-specific configurations and also the interaction with other countries who, although they're not part of a configuration or are not subject to configuration, have enjoyed the full attention and support of the PBC, as has been the case for Gambia, for example, in the past. And also the PBC's engagement with other countries that present multiple challenges, such as the instances of the Solomon Islands and Colombia. And this will be the case for Colombia in the coming year as well. And this reflects the mental and paradigm shift that has taken place in the United Nations in the link that exists between peacekeeping and peace building and our move towards sustaining peace as our paradigm, as the concept. And of course, we have moved to that goal thanks to the various reform proposals that the Secretary-General has put on the table and that we will be working to implement or to fine-tune this year. Now, from that particular perspective and looking at the provisional work plan, I think it is incumbent upon me at this particular junction to pay tribute to the work of the Peacebuilding Fund, or the PBF, and the support that the fund has provided to us nationally in El Salvador and regionally. And as ASG Taranco is there, he's familiar with the fact that we have a new project in place to cover the northern triangle of Central America, which covers ourselves, Guatemala and Honduras. And this is being supported, which is a second level of support that goes hand in hand with the national support to the Northern Triangle project. Now, looking at the provisional work plan, I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. I I'm very late for a meeting that I should be at, so I won't be here to hear the answers of the questions that I'll put. But my colleague Carla, who's here behind me, will be here to listen to your answers to the questions I have. But I apologise in advance that I have to leave. Now, bearing in mind that this is a provisional work programme, I do have a question on activities scheduled for February, where we talk about a session that will be held in which we will be able to make comments on the report, whose initial version or draft version we already have a copy of, the Secretary-General's report. Now, this is, of course, an important step, given the implications that the Secretary-General's report has for the fund and the links that it has with the other reform proposal for the development pillar of the United Nations. So there are huge implications within the report for that reform and for all that will mean going forward, because, for example, it may change the role of the resident coordinator, etc., etc. So I have a twofold question off the back of that. Will the Office of the PGA be coordinating with the Peacebuilding Support Office in order to put together the agenda for the high-level meeting on sustaining peace? And if that is the case, then we would like to know how the preparations for that agenda are moving ahead. Secondly, is the intention of that meeting to provide space for individual thought and reflection, or are we intended to come up with a collective document, a collective outcome at the end of that? Are we intended to have a joint document of the Peacebuilding Commission at the end of that as a joint reaction to the report, replacing individual reaction? Secondly, we note that throughout the year, and we welcome this, that there are many sessions that have been set aside for specific country or regional discussions. There are 5 in total such country-specific or region-specific discussion meetings. I completely agree that this is an important step to take in follow-up to paragraph 28 of the report, which talks about the form and guise of interaction that should be pursued to discuss national and regional issues. But I would like to rest assured that given that this is a provisional work programme, we are not restricting ourselves to a mere 5 such discussion opportunities in the year, but as things develop throughout the year and as requests are made to you as the chair of the Peacebuilding Configuration, is there the possibility that we will have more meetings, more than these 5 meetings for discussing national or regional level specific issues? I'll leave things there. Congratulations once again. As I said, I have to leave now, but Carla will be here listening attentively for your answers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ruben. Thank you for your questions. It's a pity you are leaving now, but I promise to find right answers to your questions. Next on my list is Colombia. I give now the floor to the permanent representative of Colombia.
Gracias.
Thank you, Chair. And congratulations to you. Very sincere congratulations. We look forward to the work that you will pursue. We know we're in good hands. We wish you all the best in the work that lies before you, and I would like to convey to you our commitment to continuing the headway that we made under the chairmanship of Ambassador Cho Tae-yul, when a great deal was done for the Peacebuilding Commission and for the work of the Peacebuilding Commission, building upon a process begun by Ambassador Patriotto, which was then pursued by Oskul, by Maturika Ayaman. We have had the great good fortune to have a raft and a series of very active chairs. And you, Ambassador Cho Tae-yul, also played a key role in shaping and consolidating our vision of development and of peacebuilding linked to that. Cho Tae-yul, with you in place, it was a very active period of work of the Peacebuilding Commission, and building upon what was done by Ambassador Cho Tae-yul and all his predecessors, we have been able to make further headway to make the PBC a body more fit for purpose. So I congratulate the 2 previous chairs, and I congratulate the incoming chair, who I'm sure will continue along this path of action with the invaluable and welcome support of ASG Oscar Fernandez-Taranco of the Peacebuilding Support Office. Now, echoing something that Ambassador Cho said, we are now currently a much more visible body as the PBC. We're a much more relevant, pertinent, effective and efficient body. We have managed to carve out a better relationship with the Security Council, where we are really seen as a consultative and advisory body, which is welcome. We have a much closer relationship with the PBSO. And this was clear at the closing meeting of the Advisory Board of the Secretary-General on the Peacebuilding Fund, when it was made abundantly clear that the link between the PBC and the PBSO is much better and is much deeper, and the intention going forward is to continue to strengthen and to build upon the relationship between the PBC and the PBF, to model what's been done between the PBC and the PBSO. So, there is a key and clear relationship there, one which will be built upon. The regional focus is something which for us is absolutely crucial in a country and in a region such as ours, and this is also true for Africa, but it's true for Latin America as well, where there are still missions in Colombia and in Haiti. It will be essential that there be that regional focus, that be regional approach. And that also encompasses, in terms of peace building, prevention and sustainability, sustainable development. We have a lot on our plate going forward, but a lot to be optimistic about. And this initial version of the work plan and the initial information that we have of the Secretary General's report, which is a precursor to the high-level meeting on peacekeeping and sustaining peace scheduled for the 24th of April, is also crucial. The report is vital. And I welcome the cross-cutting inclusion of gender in the report, although that could be fleshed out a little degree to a certain degree. But I do have to say that I welcome the fact that although one can always do better, here the approach has been excellent. Here, gender genuinely is cross-cutting. It's not restricted to a mere mention in a mere paragraph or a mere handful of paragraphs, but it really shapes the report. So we welcome that. We welcome that focus on gender and the gender dimension. So to conclude, I can simply say that we look forward to building on the momentum going forward under your leadership. May I also take an opportunity to thank the chairs of the country-specific configurations, as they are key in delivering this transformation that lies ahead as our goal for this year, as we in the PBC try to come alongside and align ourselves with the Secretary-General's own reform initiatives and endeavours. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Maria Emma. Gracias. The regional dimension, it's also high on my agenda. You have heard it. I give now the floor to the permanent representative of Kenya.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. And Ambassador, let me begin by congratulating you for assuming this important role as our chair of the PBC. We welcome your 5 points and priorities. I think they are well positioned to move us forward and keep this commission making the progress that it needs to make over the next year. My delegation commits itself to give you all the support that you need to get your work done during the course of the year. I also would like to, of course, recognize my good friend, Ambassador Cho Tae-yul, for his excellent and outstanding leadership that he provided for us during the last year. We made significant progress, as he himself clearly spelled out for us, and we thank him very much for everything that he has done for our commission and for the work of peace around the world. And that is not an understatement. The work plan that you presented us is very welcome. I have to agree with my colleague Maria from Colombia that this work plan, as it's been presented, as it's spelled out, even though it is a preliminary work plan, promises great progress for the work of the Commission. And I'd like to thank all those who've been involved in putting this work plan together. I'm sure the current and previous co-chairs, but also recognize the Peacebuilding Support Office under the Assistant Secretary General Fernandez Taranco for its great work. And while I'm at it, I'd like to congratulate them for their continued support that they provide us and the leadership that they provide within the UN on these matters of peace building. I have a couple of points which I'll have to rush through because I too have to leave. But let me just say that for us, without doubt, the future of PBC, this organizational committee, lies in its flexibility and its ability to engage countries in various forms and in various ways through its various arms, including the Peacebuilding Fund. We recognize that it's how the PBC comes into contact with the various countries around the world, and now with the footprint that is in 3 or 4 continents, that it's really proven to be a real benefit and a real value added to the GA and to the UN Security Council. And it's no surprise to me to hear that the UN Security Council and the GA, through the through the president of the GA, has begun to embrace this commission in a very different way. And I think that's because we bring real-time issues that are of concern to peace and peacebuilding to the United Nations. And so I think it's a wonderful thing. The work plan should continue to thematically and practically reflect what we do as a commission. I think we can do better in investing in prevention, as was mentioned by the Assistant Secretary General. The issues of elections, I think we can do better. We have been hesitant, but I think we can be more bold. We have heard from the configuration chairs that elections are crucial to sustaining peace. And I know that in the case of Africa, we have 18 elections this year. These are difficult evolutionary processes as we try to consolidate democracy on our continent. So the role of the PBC in helping countries work through these elections, work through the mediation around these elections, work through promoting human rights and protecting issues around inclusiveness is crucial. Helping many of us deal with the technologies that are now becoming such an integral part of elections and election processes. All these things are fundamental to many of our countries' ability to sustain peace. And I hope that the PBC will not shy away from this. And particularly because the Secretary General has himself now made peacebuilding what he calls the hinge dimension. But you know, the hinge has to be strong, I keep finding myself saying. We have peacekeeping on one side and political affairs on the other. These are big entities within the UN. And if peace building is supposed to be the hinge that sort of makes these two processes work together, then the hinge itself has to be strong. And this requires more investment and a recognition that we have to be involved in these strategic places within the challenges that the United Nations is facing. So, in my opinion, this is something that we need to invest in, and I hope that the chair will look into it as we move forward. We've heard great things about the PBF, but it remains woefully underfunded. We must be frank about this, and I would plead to those who are in a position to invest greater resources in the PBF to do so, or else this work plan that we have is not going to get us terribly far. I think that the role of the fact that the Secretary General and the PGA have embraced the peace building and what it promises is something that we must maximize over the next few months. I also think that I agree with all those who've said that we need to open up our relationship beyond Africa. We've heard about the Colombia example, but there are other examples, even in Europe. In his 12-point plan, the Secretary General bemoaned the fact that there were, I think he called them stagnated, or he used a different term to describe the fact that the peace-building processes in a number of European countries have ground to a halt. And maybe we can open up ourselves to the possibility, not just being in Africa and Latin America and the Pacific, which is where we are now, but being in other parts of the world as well in a constructive way. The African Union, of course, as has been mentioned by Ambassador Cho Tae-yul, is really valueful of what the Peacebuilding Commission has been doing in relation to its work with the African Union. And I think we should continue doing this and doing it forcefully. I know that from my friends in the PSC, today I'm blanking out. I must be ready to leave this process. The PSC in Addis Ababa, that they really valued the visits that we've given and with the fact that we've gone there and given them the profile that they feel they deserve as an interlocutor for the United Nations. I hope you'll continue this, Ambassador, in the coming years. So, by way of conclusion, let me just say that I sincerely hope that we will continue to promote the communication aspects of our commission. It's really good to hear that we are now webcasting our work. I think it's important that the world knows what we're trying to do here, that it isn't just a by the way, that this is fundamental to the work of the United Nations. As I depart, I want to thank all my colleagues. The configuration chairs have been amazing. We've had wonderful field trips with Canada and Sweden. My colleague from Switzerland, we might as well have made field trips together because we spent so much time talking about Burundi and conversing with our friend Albert over there. So I just want to thank you very much for your camaraderie. And once again to thank you, Ambassador Onyenga, for everything that you've promised to do for building peace in our world as we move forward. And I wish you all farewell and see you, I hope, in Kenya soon. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Kamau, dear Macharia, and thank you also on a personal note on your kind words, support, and wise advices. Well, I look forward to come to Kenya. We'll find an opportunity in a way or another. Next on my list, c'est le Burundi.
Is Burundi, but before giving the floor to the permanent representative, I have a very long list of requests for the floor, so I would ask that you try to be as brief as possible. So I now give the floor to the permanent representative of Burundi. Albert, you have the floor. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to begin by joining others in sincerely congratulating you on your election. It's well-deserved election to lead the Peacebuilding Commission. My delegation appreciates and supports the 5 priorities that you identified. We share in the considering these 5 priorities quite relevant. I also wish to congratulate the outgoing chair, the permanent rep of Korea, for the work he did last year. We greatly appreciated his approach, one which included great consultations and cooperation. We hope that the chair will continue in the same manner. I also wish to say a short word about my colleague from Kenya who has just left. I wanted to hail the work that he did in the Commission, first as chair and then as vice chair. He will occupy a very important post in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs now. He'll be the head of the orchestra there. And we will continue cooperating at the regional level with him. Chair, as you know, our commission is one that remains quite young. It's only been about 12 years since this commission was created. And as you know, at the age of 12, our children are barely at the end of their primary school education. So our commission, although it has done great work, there is much room for improvement, room for growth. To do so, to grow and improve, sometimes we need to be self critical and avoid resting on our laurels, but improving and our commission, because truly it is too young. So with this in mind, I will say a few comments. Firstly, on the principal goal of our commission, that is the mobilization of resources in the states on the agenda, so as to assist these states so that they do not fall back into violence. This is crucial. We must stay true to this mission. Our work must be guided by this mission, and any way to go beyond that could in some way undermine our activities. For example, this is an example from Burundi. When we started talking about mobilizing resources for Burundi, in a country emerging from conflict, this is a way to rebuild economically and socially. But some members of the commission or the configuration at that time undertake economic sanctions against a country on the agenda, but under the Cotonou agreements, we find this to be a paradox, to attempt to assist a state to rise again, but then to put sanctions on this committee. Well, that is a bit of a contradiction. And these sanctions were undertaken in 2015, but they have gradually ended. And we now encourage those countries to remove these sanctions because they run counter to the mission of our commission. Secondly, regarding configuration work in a general sense, there are various configurations who are doing excellent work, especially that of Burundi, which is led by my colleague Jörg Lober. And I commend him for his cooperation, his work, his support of Burundi. However, if you look closely, you can see that there is a trend in some configurations, and this, I would say, is a general analysis here. Sometimes we see, perhaps this is involuntary, but we see that these configurations there are attempts to transform them into human rights councils, where we have to talk only about human rights while forgetting the social and economic sectors. These are crucial sectors for these countries to rebuild. It is true that human rights are one of the 3 pillars of the United Nations, and we fully support this. But when this pillar takes up more than 70% of the discussions in these configurations, when there are other bodies like the Human Rights Council and the Third Committee that deal with these topics, this could undermine the activities of these configurations. So I wish to stress this so that this trend can be changed. Also, Chair, we need to think about the principles that guide our commission. You touched upon this in your priorities, the crucial nature of national ownership. I think that this principle should not be just a slogan. This must be properly implemented to allow national authorities to be their own bosses and take on the decision-making process and avoid any attempts to guide national authorities in this area. Another principle that you stressed, and that is in your work plan amongst your 5 priorities, is the regional dimension. Sir, we constantly are saying that regional actors play a crucial role. Neighboring countries to those countries on the agenda have a key role. They know the history, the culture, these countries themselves. Therefore, we believe that if we need to consult on a country that is on the agenda, we must take into account the advice and proposals from regional actors and from the immediate neighbors of these countries. But the current trend is to see that in the various commissions, there is a greater and greater gap between the positions of regional actors and the positions of other members of the Commission, those who are not on the African continent. So we believe that this gap, if it continues to grow, could also threaten the efforts of the Commission. So here what I'm saying is that every time we need to do as much as possible to respect the advice coming from the sub-region. And in conclusion, Mr. Chair, if we want to maintain the relevance of this commission and configurations, we must, first and foremost, respect the primary mandate of our commission and the principles that guide us, those that you laid out in your 5 priorities and that I just brought up. These are the few comments I wanted to share with you. And once again, you can count on the cooperation of Burundi throughout your mandate. I thank you. I thank the permanent representative of Burundi and now give the floor to the permanent representative of Belgium.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I, in my turn, would like to congratulate you upon your election to this very important post and to taking up the reins of guiding our work. I'd also like to thank Ambassador Cho for his own leadership and the inspiring quality of the work carried out by him and his entire team as they led the work of the PBC. I'd also like to thank the chairs of the various country-specific configurations, whom I thank for their own endeavours and hard work. Chair, as you yourself have said, I think that what we need to do is to continue building on the momentum of good work following the pattern set for us by Ambassador Cho and Ambassador Kamau, his predecessor. I think we're in a position to say that in 2017, the PBC displayed flair, innovation. It was very flexible in its approach to its work. And I think that that meant that we were able to engage in very active exchanges and frank discussions within the PBC itself. So we're on the right track, in my view, echoing what you yourself said and echoing a similar point made by the Assistant Secretary General. Now we must continue on that track. We mustn't lose heart. We must build, rather, on the momentum. My delegation stands fully behind the priorities that you have set. We endorse your programme of work. There is one point that I would like to particularly underscore, and that is the importance of positioning our work within the broader framework of the discussions that are currently underway within this organisation on the Secretary-General's proposed reform and on this intended shift towards conflict prevention as the overarching goal and purpose, which is something that is very dear to us. We are also part of the broader debate on sustaining peace, and of course we all know there'll be the high-level meeting on sustaining peace in April of this year. All of that to say that I think that this is an opportunity for the PBC. We can strike while the iron is hot. We are ideally placed, thanks to our composition, thanks to our mandate, thanks to our role as a hub for exchange with very different stakeholders, with the whole panoply thereof. We are therefore ideally placed to play this bridging role, to act as the hinge between the different pillars, as you yourself have also said. And here, I think that my vision is slightly different from my excellent colleague and friend Albert from Burundi. There's a nuance I'd introduce, a slight shift. I would say that all of that is the wealth, the added value of our Peacebuilding Commission, that we can have this interconnected, holistic approach where, of course, socioeconomic development is vitally important. But we know that socioeconomic development cannot take place in the absence of good governance, in the absence of respect for human rights or the rule of law. So it's on that holistic approach that we should work. I think that the time has come to move towards a conceptual reflection from a conceptual reflection on our action to tangible action. And here again, I think our PBC is well placed thanks to the vehicles of the country-specific configurations which deal with tangible, concrete issues. So we have an opportunity to measure what is working well, what could work better, what is not working at all, looking at the tangible tools, steps taken by the country-specific configurations. They give us a tailor-made or ready-made set of indicators, as it were. I conclude by thanking you, Chair, once again, and assuring you of the full support of my delegation. Thank you very much, Mark, says the Chair, and I have taken very careful note of the point that you made, that we need to move from thought and brainstorming to action. And I now give the floor to the distinguished permanent representative of Bangladesh.
Thank you, Chair. It is indeed a pleasure to join you all at this first plenary meeting of the 12th session of the PBC, and I join my colleagues in congratulating Ambassador Yanga on assuming the chairmanship of PBC, and look forward to working with the Romanian delegation through these exciting times. We also congratulate the Republic of Korea and Germany for being vice chairs of our work. It would be remiss on our part not to recall the stellar role played by the Republic of Korea as chair of PBC's 11th session. And for us, Ambassador Cho's tenure will be marked by his efforts to promote the One PBC by reinvigorating the work of the organizational committee. His able stewardship has consolidated the PBC's convening and advisory role, revived confidence among the principal organs about PBC's value-added contributions, enhanced PBC's meaningful engagements on regional and cross-cutting issues, ensured synergy with the work of the Peacebuilding Fund, and set in motion the legacy of issue-specific focal points among PBC members working in support of the chair. We can foresee further exciting time awaiting us in the coming year. We are heartened by our newly appointed chair's commitment and the 5 priority areas he outlined in his opening statement. And we also take good note of the rather packed year-long work plan. We have the task before us to add further impetus to the Secretary General's proposal to turn the PBSO into a hinge for the UN's engagements on conflict prevention and sustaining peace across its 3 pillars. We have the opportunity to work on the Secretary General's forward-leaning recommendations in his upcoming report on peace building and sustaining peace, address the question of peace building financing, including for a quantum leap in contributions for the Peace Building Fund, and put in place a process for regular reporting on the UN system-wide contribution to peace building and sustaining peace. The PGA's high-level meeting in April can be the right occasion to make some of these happen and catalyze others. For Bangladesh, the PBC's potentials to make a difference was once again brought to mind with the Rohingya humanitarian crisis. Following the initial rush for saving lives and bringing Myanmar back to the negotiating table, we find ourselves in the face of the enormous work that needs to be done to commence the safe, voluntary and dignified return of those forcibly displaced. Without the assurance of an environment conducive to their sustainable return, not a single individual would be willing to return into the folds of sheer uncertainty. While the Security Council must continue to monitor and discuss the overall situation, the PBC could effectively offer advice on the international community's support to Myanmar for creating the favorable environment required for return pursuant to the recommendations made by the Rakhine Advisory Commission led by Mr. Kofi Annan. The PBF has had some experience of working in Myanmar, and the PBC does not necessarily need to start from scratch. We would urge the Chair and other interested members to consider broaching the matter with Myanmar towards initiating a constructive dialogue within the PBC. On our part, Bangladesh assures the Chair and Vice Chairs of our modest yet continued support in further advancing peace building and sustaining peace across the UN system. We shall continue to act as the bridge between PBC and NAM, including by keeping the movement regularly apprised of PBC's work. We would be happy to continue serving as a focal point for promoting implementation of PBC's gender strategy along with our excellent Canadian colleagues. We look forward to further elaborating our practical commitment to sustaining peace during our high-level participation at the PGA's meeting in April. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the permanent representative of Bangladesh, I can only say I fully share your appreciation to the Republic of Korea and our colleague and friend, Ambassador Cho. I now give the floor to the representative of Ecuador.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair, my distinguished friend, and congratulations to you on the very welcome and very apt election to the chairmanship. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Cho for all his leadership of the Peacebuilding Commission in the last year. And I think it's very welcome for the work going forward in terms of continuity that we have the previous chair now serving as one of the vice chairs together with our colleague from Germany as the other vice chair. We're in very good hands. We're a newcomer to the PBC, but we have been following very closely in the work of the PBC and all that has been done under the excellent leadership of the previous chairs. And we look forward to all that's been done to move forward the work of the Peacebuilding Commission and its task and its mandate. I'm very familiar and a good friend with our ASG, Oscar Fernandez Taranco, and I know that he works very hard for peace building as a cause. Your work plan is very clear and very explicit, Chair, and I'm sure that working together, coming together as a team, will be able to implement it fully. As the permanent representative of my country and on behalf of my colleagues in the mission of Ecuador, may I reassure you of our full support and that we will spare no effort in order to ensure that we can deliver on this programme of work and that the outcomes of the PBC in this year will be positive. Thank you very much. With that, I conclude with a note of congratulations once again, Chair.
I thank the permanent representative of Ecuador. Thank you, Diego. Muchas gracias. I now give the floor to the representative of Indonesia.
Thank you, Chair. Let me first commend Ambassador Cho Tae-yul and also the vice chairs of last year's PBC for their vital role over the year and express our deep appreciations to their team and the PBSO team for convening this important OCPBC meeting. And I would like to also congratulate Ambassador Jinga, also Germany and ROK, as the new chair and vice chair of the PBC. Indonesia would like to express its strong commitment to work together with the new chair and vice chairs, as well as the rest of the OCPBC members in discharging the mandate of PBC. As mentioned previously by many colleagues, financing still considers as a crucial factor to improve our work in building peace. It is highlighted in the Secretary General's Advance Report on Sustaining Peace, which has just been circulated. Indonesia has had the pleasure of working together with Norway to promote financing for peace building. Moving forward, both countries are committed to continuing our work in the PBC on these issues, also in the years ahead under the guidance of the chair, especially on finding the best ways and means for alternative funding for peace building. Indonesia also would like to welcome the 5 priorities of Romania as the new chair and would like to highlight 2 important points. First of all, learning from our experience working with regional and sub-regional organizations, partnerships, we see that partnership with regional and sub-regional organizations are crucial to create able environment for peace, stability, and development in the region. And second issue that I would like to highlight is the national ownership as the fundamental in order to achieve the results of peace building. National ownership should also encourage women and youth to play a bigger role in fostering reconciliation and building stakes for a collective national vision for peace and prosperity. This also entails good governance, including rule of law sector reform to adopt these measures. Indonesia stands ready to take part and contribute constructively to peace building as a way to address complex challenges to peace and security. And all the best for the new chair and vice chair.
Thank you so much. Je donne maintenant la parole à la représentante.
Now give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations, of course, on your election and the election of the vice chairs. I would also like to thank Ambassador Cho for his intense work last year. If you would allow, I'd like to speak a few words of English.
Work done, and also for the very integrated approach that you are applying in this commission. I think that the Peacebuilding Commission has a very important role at very important times. It's recognized by everyone. I don't want to repeat everything that was said, but I think it's very important to understand that our happiness will be to serve all. We have to keep in mind all the stakeholders and all those whom this Peacebuilding Commission is to serve. I think the European Union's integrated approach and the Council conclusions just adopted this month demonstrate how close our logic is to the logic of the United Nations. So I think that the profile of this Commission and its legitimacy will be raised best by its results. I would like to reassure you of our support in your very relevant priorities, our cooperation with all the configurations, with all the colleagues around the table, as well as other organs in the United Nations. I think coherence and synergy will come through, and I thank all the Secretariat work and looking forward to cooperating with you all. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union. And
I now give the floor to the representative of France, and you have the floor. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank Ambassador Cho Tae-yul and his team for his work in leading the Commission during 2017. And this in line with the momentum given in 2016, the twin resolutions on sustaining peace. The chairmanship of the Commission during 2017 has undertaken all the reforms to ensure that the committee is more efficient, effective, and that it will be in line with peace building. And I congratulate you on your election to head the Commission. And I'm also pleased to see Germany and South Korea being elected as vice chairs. I have no doubt that you will continue on with this excellent momentum. We have seen the work plan that you presented to us, I believe, reflects the innovations that were launched. And France is pleased to see this and fully supports your 5 priorities. I would like perhaps to focus on 3 particular points. The first is that the fact that the work plan reflects the Security Council's will to lean more heavily on the expertise of the Commission. And as we've seen, the Security Council's decisions to focus on this with the Sahel region and the Great Lakes region, I feel that it is important to stress the Commission's focus this year on the Sahel region. I see here that there is a complementarity between the actions of the Council and those of the Commission. We know that the success of stabilizing the Sahel must be based on 2 aspects. One, the support of the G5 Sahel, which we are continuing in the Security Council, but the other focus is on economic and social development in the region as a whole. And I think that this Commission has a particularly important role to play in mobilizing all relevant stakeholders to do so. The second point I wanted to raise is that this work plan shows a better synergy between the Council and the Commission, namely through the systematic organization of meetings and of the country configuration with the Council. And I think that the chairs of the country configurations should be sure to be present when the Council meets on these matters. Finally, so this is my third point, I think that the work shown in the work plan stresses the need for a rapprochement between the Peacebuilding Fund and the Commission. There are regular sessions being planned so that the members will be able to see the concrete actions of the fund and to exchange views with those who receive the funds, and I support that. And I support the statement made by the ambassador of Colombia and that of the permanent representative of Bangladesh earlier. I think this is an excellent opportunity to broaden the geographic and thematic scope of this commission. So in conclusion, a new step will be moving forward in the concept of sustaining peace when the Secretary General's report will be presented and the high-level meeting will be held at the end of April. The Commission, more than ever, has a crucial role, a role as a hinge, and I share the proposals made by Belgium earlier to promote peace building and sustaining peace within the reform actions underway in the organization as a whole, those that are underway right now. And therefore, you may count on the full support of my delegation in these efforts.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
My list is South Africa. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. Ambassador, firstly, would like to congratulate you on your assumption as chair and look forward to working closely with you during this year. A particular note of thanks to Ambassador Cho. My delegation appreciates his efforts to strengthen engagement with the African continent, particularly the numerous visits to the African Union. We commend Ambassador Jinga for his intention to continue this regional approach with a focus on regional and sub-regional partnerships, the focus on the Sahel, as well as engagement with the IFIs. We welcome the priorities that have been elaborated by the chair today. We believe that the key to sustainable peace consolidation lies in strengthening the entire spectrum of the political approaches, from prevention all the way through to post-conflict reconstruction and development. In this regard, sustained attention by the international community to countries emerging from conflict and positive and sustained contributions from the international community to the stability, economic growth and development in these states are fundamental to the global peace and security agenda. We can only achieve sustainable peace when member states are capacitated and their economies and societies can withstand threats to their stability. The broadening of the concept of peace-building support should therefore include not only financing for development, but reflect elements of the African Solidarity Initiative, namely reflecting in-kind support such as training and capacity building of state institutions. Lastly, we agree that the sustainable and predictable funding of the Peacebuilding Fund is a critical element to meaningfully addressing the work plan and sustaining peace. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Je donne maintenant la parole.
I give the floor now to the representative of the Central African Republic. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to begin by congratulating you upon your election, and I also congratulate, I beg your pardon, the other members of the Commission. Thanks in particular go to Ambassador Cho and to the permanent representative of Germany, our new vice chairs. I would like to convey my sincere gratitude to Mr. Macau for the important work that took place under his leadership of the PBC, and to wish him every success in his new role and to congratulate him on a very well-deserved promotion. I would like to highlight the important role played in all of our work by ASG Taranko, as he provides oversight of the financial support of the implementation of the mandate and the actions of the PBC. The re-election of the 5 country-specific configuration chair speaks volumes to their dedication to delivering on their mandates. I particularly congratulate the chair of the Central African Republic, country-specific configuration, who has been tireless in his efforts to help and support the government of the CAR as they seek to pursue the restoration of peace in the Central African Republic, a country which is unfortunately still racked by the destabilizing activities of terrorists and of armed groups. Since the Brussels conference, Ambassador Hilal has been unrelenting in his round of journeys and trips to the Central African Republic and to all of our partners, calling upon them to fulfill their pledges, which are unfortunately not all honoured, in order to support the implementation of the Central African Republic's National Recovery and Peacebuilding Plan, particularly Pillar 1, with its focus on SSR, DDR, rule of law and reconciliation. We thank the country-specific configuration for their report, and we also thank the Secretary-General and the outgoing chair for their reports, and we thank the incoming chair for his proposed programme of work for 2018. As I conclude, Chair, I congratulate you once again and reassure you of my full support. I thank the representative of the Central African Republic, says the chair, and I now give the floor to Mexico. Thank you very much, Chair. As my first order of business, I would like to convey congratulations to you upon your taking up of the office of Chair of the PBC and reassure you of my full governance support and backing in the discharge of your duties, particularly as you pursue the priorities that you spelled out for us in your programme of work, priorities that we agree with. It would be remiss of me to proceed without thanking most warmly Ambassador Cho and the Republic of Korea, the entire team, for their work throughout the last year, to thank Ambassador Cho personally for his leadership and the way in which he has raised the profile of the PBC and made sure that it has occupied its full place on the political agenda of this organisation and outside. But I also wish to thank him for his flexibility in approaching different issues and his willingness to address different issues and topics as they arise. And again here, to maintain the profile of the PBC. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Ambassador Kamau through the good offices of AVA for their work, not just as a previous chair, but also for the hard work of Kenya as chair of the Methods of Work Working Group, or the Methodology Working Group of the PBC. Their work is enshrined in the report that we're adopting today, and the work of that Methodology Working Group has been vital in order to ensure that we can build upon the momentum and that we can continue to increase the role and raise the profile of the BBC and make sure that it can do the work that it's intended to do and that it is seen as a full and proper partner. I would like to echo a few points flagged by those who spoke before me on the need to continue to work to shape our work in line with the broader reform process that's already underway in the United Nations following the reform proposal of the Secretary-General, as well as ensure that our work aligns with the new role that it is intended to be carved out for the Peacebuilding Support Office, as that is reshaped and takes up a new guise. We must keep a close eye on how all of that affects the work of the PBC. I would also support the requests for greater information and greater activity by the PBC. In other words, hard work in preparation for the high-level meeting at the end of April, but to make sure that we're fully informed in the run-up there too. I would also point on that particular need to the need to increase the channels of communication between the PBC and the ECOSOC. A reform process is underway of the development pillar of the United Nations, but there is further reform underway in the broader work of ECOSOC, and so I think that this is a perfect opportunity to continue consultation, to continue working with ECOSOC, and to continue to foster a mutually beneficial relationship between the PBC and the ECOSOC, and to again raise the profile of the PBC within the work of the ECOSOC, and to make sure that we're not relegated, that we're not swept under the carpet in any way, that our work is taken advantage of, that it's valued, and that we're understood as a key component of the work of the ECOSOC. That also needs to be true for our relationship with the Security Council and the General Assembly. But part of making sure that we have a bigger role to play and a bigger voice in the Security Council and the General Assembly is to raise our profile within the ECOSOC, because ECOSOC will also be a champion of the reform of the United Nations system and the repositioning of the relationship between the bodies of the United Nations system. So given that that is the case, I would press for greater cooperation, greater collaboration with ECOSOC, as the PBC and through the PBSO. And on all of that, we look forward to the leadership of the Bureau as we increase that interaction, as we increase that collaboration and cooperation. I conclude by congratulating once again the new Bureau, the new chair and the two new vice chairs, the ambassadors of the Republic of Korea and Germany, and I thank the PBSO as well and wish you all the best of success in your endeavours going forward. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It is indeed my intention to continue cooperation and discussions with the ECOSOC, with the chair of the ECOSOC, and I'll do my best to walk on the footsteps of my predecessor. Gracias once again. Now next on my list is Sierra Leone.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. At the outset, let me apologize for the absence of my ambassador, who is not here due to unavoidable circumstances. Let me congratulate you, Chair, on the assumption of the chairmanship of the PBC and also the vice chairs, Korea and Germany. I would like to align my delegation with the statement made on behalf of the Sierra Leone configuration by the representative of Canada. I would like to say that we fully endorse the contents of his presentation. Chair, we are particularly pleased, especially with the work of the Peacebuilding Support Office and in their efforts also to support, through the PBF, the elections in Sierra Leone. I would like to say in particular the Women's Situation Room, which the PBF has supported, and the particular thanks go to ASG Taranko for his efforts. As a form of update for the elections, I would like to report that all parties have nominated their presidential and parliamentary candidates. Campaigning for the election should start on the 4th of February. And it is hoped that the elections will be peaceful, free, and fair. Special thanks also go to Ambassador Blanchard for his passion for Sierra Leone and his efforts to mobilize support for the development of Sierra Leone in general and for the elections in particular. Thank you very much, Chair.
I thank the distinguished representative of Sierra Leone. I now give the floor to the distinguished permanent representative of Bolivia.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Chair. First and foremost, I, in my turn, would like to congratulate you, echoing all the other delegations who took the floor before me, congratulate you as you take up this post, and my congratulations also go to the vice chairs of our PBC, the representatives of Germany and the Republic of Korea. Double thanks and congratulations go to Ambassador Cho of the Republic of Korea, firstly for his work and leadership. I was able to see firsthand all the effort that he put into the work of the Peacebuilding Commission into discharging the duties of chair. And I saw that within the Security Council, and his contribution to the work of the Security Council is well acknowledged and very much appreciated. Ambassador, your participation as one of the vice chairs of the PBC going forward will help smooth the path of the work of the Commission going forward. And I'm sure will ensure that our work reaps dividends. We align ourselves with the 5 points raised by you, Chair, in the introduction to your draft programme of work for this year's session of the PBC. From our own perspective, as an elected member of the Security Council, in addition to thanking all members of the PBC for the trust reposed in us, we believe that the role of the Peacebuilding Commission is crucial in the work of the Security Council, not just in providing added value and as an advisor to the work of the Security Council, but you can also push the Security Council to understand the realities on the ground in those different areas which have been racked by conflict and to have a better understanding thereof. And that is particularly the case, and I hope I'm not offending anyone when I say this, particularly so when the multilateral system is under assault, it is under attack. There are constant threats against the multilateral system, those who seek to undermine it and those who seek to decry it. And so I think that the Peacebuilding Commission serves to highlight the value of the multilateral system and to shore it up and to defend it. We ourselves will spare no effort to strengthen the goals and purposes and to deliver on the goals and purposes of the PBC. And on that particular note, we will try using our available capacities to draw attention to one core element if you look at the conflict and post-conflict situations in many corners of the world, and that is the element of economic and social development and with governance, good governance. But it is also an element related to wise management and governance of available natural resources and responsibility and accountability for natural resources in a given country that may be in a conflict or post-conflict situation. The Secretary General has already made the point that preventive diplomacy is a welcome and useful tool for resolving conflict in many parts of the world, but I think that many conflicts in Africa and other parts of the world, one of the root causes thereof is often the mishandling and misappropriation of natural resources and the failure of good governance over their natural resources. That's not just an issue of the rule of law in countries, but it's also an issue of needing to tackle how transnational organizations reap the benefit of the whirlwind of conflict and instability, and they exploit that to their advantage to run around the law, even where the law does exist. I commit to doing all I can to contribute to the success of your work and of the PBC's work, Chair, and you can count on us to do all that we can and to support your own efforts and endeavours to ensure that we can fulfil to the letter the programme of work you have set before us. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished permanent representative of Bolivia. Gracias, Sasha. Last, but certainly not the least, on my list is the permanent representative of the Republic of Korea, Ambassador Cho.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to let you know how grateful I am to all of the distinguished colleagues who took the floor for their extremely kind words to me, my team, and my country for the small contribution we made as the chair in the year 2017. I can reassure you of my firm commitment to continuously working closely with all the members, and especially with you, Mr. Chair, with the team spirit, so that the year 2018 will transpire to be a successful and promising year for the Commission's work. As I take the floor, may I also take this opportunity to briefly respond to the question raised by my distinguished colleague from El Salvador on whether or not there will be an outcome document out of the high-level event to be hosted by the PGA in April. Well, I had an opportunity to discuss this matter with the PGA himself at the meeting last week in his office, which was held at his request. I think he wanted to hear from me about how to frame and prepare the high-level event in terms of the agenda and the message or outcome. And during the meeting, I raised this issue of outcome document because I believe that now is the high time for us to take stock of the progress we made in recent years and provide the way forward in the years to come, given the fact that we are now entering into the midterm point in the 5-year review exercise for the peace-building architecture. So I thought that it would be highly advisable for the PGA to think about seriously the outcome document, preferably in the form of a very brief, short, and procedural resolution, because we should not enter into the reopening of the negotiations on the substance, which was outcome of the very intensive negotiations some years ago. So I strongly proposed the PGA to think about producing outcome document in the form of a procedural brief resolution out of the high-level event. And I think he took note of my suggestion, and he will further explore these ideas with the relevant bodies of the United Nations and as well as within the Secretariat, including the PBSO. I think the PGA's office has been in contact with the PBSO on this matter, and they will further continue these consultations. And we will see what will be the case in the coming weeks. Thank you very much once again. I wish all the best to you, Mr. Chair, and I will remain committed to working closely with you as the new Vice Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Taiyul, and thank you also for sharing with us what you have discussed recently with the PGA. In fact, I will meet tomorrow Franciszek Ruzicka, Ambassador Ruzicka, who is the chef de cabinet of the PGA, and the week after I will meet the PGA too. So it's very good to have this kind of exchange of views and perceptions. I will ask immediately Oscar to come with probably some more inputs on this issue. This was the last intervention requested on my list. So formally we can say the Commission has concluded its consideration on agenda item 4. We still need to give, or at least to try to give some answers to a few questions which have been asked. To the first one asked by Ruben. So a part of what Oscar will probably say about I will meet the PGA and his chef de cabinet, and I promise to come back to you as soon as I have some more clear elements. On the second question asked by the ambassador of El Salvador, I'll be more than happy to discuss with other countries which may wish to come to the Commission and cooperate with the Commission and ask the Commission to get involved in helping them. Again, the only role I see for this Commission is to help. And this has been always done, and it will continue to be done on a collegial, on a friendly approach. It's a collective effort we try to do together for the sake of the peace, development, and for rising up a kind of solidarity we need so much within this Commission and within the United Nations. So whoever will be wishing to talk to me and to the Secretariat and to the Vice Chairs to add an additional point on the Commission's work plan, we will be happy to consider and to see what can be done. Now, Assistant Secretary General, I'll be grateful if you could add something. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I think just in the interest of time, to try to capture a little bit the moment, we in fact informally shared the advanced copy of the SG's report on sustaining peace because of the huge demand and the huge expectation and the huge pressure to actually ensure that this high-level event, which is the top priority of the PGA, is a result for the whole membership. As you have seen in the work plan, we are working also with the chair of the PBC to see how the Secretary General himself can come and engage with this particular commission as to what belies the numerous and many important recommendations and options that he is putting forward at the request of member states. The resolution on peace building and sustaining peace was extremely ambitious, and the requests to the Secretary General were quite challenging. I can say that we have spent more than 1 year working with more than 22 agencies, funds, and programs to actually sign off on the version that eventually was signed off by the Executive Office of the Secretary General. We have had numerous meetings of the Executive Committee on this. So it is quite an important document because it really crystallizes how the reforms come together and the interrelationship between them, which is, as many member states said here, extremely important as part of the deliberations of the PBC. We have also been engaging with the President of the General Assembly's office continuously, and we have been, of course, briefing them. So I think what is important is that this expectation clearly needs to be built and continued, and we need to now, and I think there are efforts, at least from the core group that helped draft this document, which is my office, the Peacebuilding Support Office, the Department of Political Affairs, and UNDP on behalf of the wider UN development system. We are undertaking informal briefings to member states at their request. So we have already initiated a deeper briefing, if you will, with the NAM, with the EU, and with the group of friends of sustaining peace. And again, with any groupings and member state that so wish to be better informed as to what is, the rationale. As you can imagine, the challenge of this report was the word count given by DGACM and the membership at large. So putting in so much context and substance into the limited format of assembly documents was a big challenge. On the issue of the outcome document, clearly this is the prerogative of the PGA. For us, I mean us, meaning the UN. I think what is important that member states consider is how we continue this conversation beyond the high-level meeting and event. And I think whatever format that the membership so wishes and decides upon would be something that allows us to keep reporting back to you. I think this is the intention of the Secretary General, is to keep reporting back to member states how these reforms, how the work of our office together with many others actually are delivering on the ambitions of the resolutions and the recommendations. So just to conclude on this, as we speak, actually, I think the President of the GA is speaking with the Secretary General, actually, on his report and how he wants this to be carried forward. So the political commitment of the SG to this particular report, and then again this notion of keeping the long-term view about what is contained here, which hopefully will inform the deliberations. And the last point is really hoping that it is called a high-level meeting, and we expect high-level participants, meaning that it is extremely important to have the capitals be present here, because there's very many important considerations to be had which would inform whatever outcome this meeting would have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Assistant Secretary General. I would now turn to our last agenda item, which is other matters. Are there any other issues that member states wish to raise today? Well, if not, I can only say the first meeting of the Organizational Committee of the 12th session of the Peacebuilding Commission is adjourned. Thank you all. I count on each and every of you. I wish you a good afternoon. Enjoy your lunchtime. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Felicitaciones.